Hello, welcome to PodFic Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Goldscythe. I read adult fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today I will continue reading the Silmarillion / Lord of the Rings fic from Archive of Our Own by myself, called The Wraith of Himring. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I will try my best for you with the equipment available to me. On with the show. The Wraith of Himring by Goldscythe. Chapter 5. A Spark of Happiness. Time passed on, and Maglar still occasionally went to see Maedhros, but there was never any change. Linwen came with him less and less. Their daughter took more and more of their time. She was lively, wild even, reminding him painfully of Tuakko, or cousin Irise. When Linwen had told him she was with child, and had looked so ecstatic, he himself had felt both fear and joy. If the child bore too clearly the signs of being a descendant of the house of Feanor, he would have damned her to be a target and scorned. She had been dreaming of a beautiful child with raven hair. But when the midwife had gasped after washing the newborn, he looked at her, toddling around, playing with carved animals she had been gifted. She had his Amile's flaming red hair, but his darker eyes. Linwen had been delighted even more, and would often be found brushing her hair and smiling radiantly. "We have such a beautiful daughter. How many suitors we will have to fight off in the future," Linwen laughed as she came to sit next to him on the log, watching her play on a blanket with her toys. He chuckled, but he also dreaded it. "You said once you adopted 2 boys. Did your brother adopt his?" she asked suddenly, and made him pause, confused. "Gano, I'm not stupid. You tried to play with their language differences. Please, you can be honest with me." "It's something that even I don't know. I've heard some of the Noldor who are different in body. I don't remember exactly what I said." "It's complicated, isn't it? Do you think I'm too simple to understand?" "No!" He grimaced as he accidentally raised his voice a little. "No. Things were a mess back then. An absolute mess." He had tried telling more, but she hadn't been able to grasp the finer details, and he let it be. She wasn't as hung up on the past as he was. They lived for today, planned for tomorrow, hoped for the next week. He watched as she took hold of a stalk of timothy, snapping it and twirling it in her fingers. "The land here is growing weaker. We need to move again soon. The Edda speak of a good place to settle further inland. I have postponed our leaving. First with my pregnancy, then with your brother being unwell and near, then with her being so small. She is but a few years old." "You lack provisions for a long journey," he pointed out. "You're leaving too late." She glanced at him, slightly offended. "Maybe. I have gathered what I can, of what does not perish. We can survive. She's old enough, I hope. We should leave. The crop yield this year will be poor." "I will go with you. I can visit him less. I have to focus on my family. My new family. I did all I could for my sons. I will do the same for you and our daughter." She smiled brilliantly, tackling him off the log as she suddenly hugged and kissed him. Their daughter started to giggle at the sight. The move was slow. Maglar was used to traveling on horseback and was almost frustrated by the lack of progress their community made. The others enjoyed the nature and foraged as they went, hunters drifting to and fro. They crossed the mountains by the summer, wandering, often seeking forested areas. Maglar kept his hood up most of the journey, his hair tied back, face completely hidden. Linwen tried to get him to stop the habit, but let it be eventually. Their daughter did not fear him, and he was often carrying her. Often, they would call after him when he was left standing somewhere, staring into nothing. They grew worried of him the deeper they ventured into the lands. He seemed agitated and looked around constantly, barely sleeping. He was always on guard. One night, as they were around their campfire, they felt and heard someone approaching. The soft singing was halted, and many rose to their feet. "Well met, fellow travelers. May we join your fire?" came the Sindarin greeting, and as the group struggled to reply, Maglar eyed them from under his hood. Rarely do the elves speaking Sindarin travel, he groused. The leader of the group, just at the edge of their firelight, was startled, settling down his hood. His hair was golden, in several braids, and he bore no markings of a house, only scars of a battle. Your accent is not Sindarin, nor is it Avarin. Makor bristled, shielding his daughter from his view as she slept between him and Linwen. I did not mean to be rude. My name is Gildorin Glorion, and these are my kin and friends. We travel where we will, under Arien and the stars of Varda. We are but simple travelers, looking for a new homeland, Maklar replied, fighting to keep his accent in check. He had heard that name before. But where? He rose, to properly show manners, however. Elen sila lumen omen tielvo, Gildor then said, and his accent, the intonation, made Maklar snap his head up, giving away his own heritage. So you are a fellow Nolda. You're from Nargothrond. I was, and I believe I know who you are. Or were. At the sight of Maklar tensing up, he held up a hand in a placating manner. I do not plan to tell the wide world who you are. I see you have found happiness at last. You are free to join our fire, Maklar rasped in Sindarin, inclining his head. The Avari made space for them, and the group with Gildor simply sat where they wished, sharing their food and drink with them. The group was comprised of Noldor, making Maklar anxious, so much so that even Linwen's calming hand on his arm didn't make the tension bleed away. Later that night, when Maklar kept his usual watch, he felt Gildor come up next to him, standing there, looking into the darkness. You have wed her? Yes, she is persistent. Your daughter took after your mother. That she did. I'm afraid you should, but not for her. There are dark things afoot. The forests and fields are not safe. You have to seek refuge within bigger settlements. The orcs are moving in larger groups under the cover of night. Mighty as you are, you cannot defend them all alone. I cannot. You know who I am. What I have done. Makalaure, Elrond would have you safe. I would not seek refuge with Celebrimbor. Telperinquar, I mean. There is something foul in his lands. What of my other nephew? I wasn't aware of others but Celebrimbor. Maklar hissed at his lip. Morju had a son, half-elven. You raised Elrond, didn't you? I've heard him and King Ereinion speak of you. People talk at the stables when looking after their horses. I was in Mithlond for a while. Elrond we drove his mother into jumping out of a window. She made her choice, but then we just took them and raised them, but I couldn't. Neither could he. Not another set of twins lost. He never forgave himself for not finding the sons of Dior. We lost our brothers that day, but we grew to love them. You Fëanorians always loved elflings, your own or not. I do suspect one of Elrond's assistants is half-elven. He has the dark hair of your family. And definitely the cold look, he added with a chuckle. Makor sighed a little, so they were all safe. For now. When he pondered Gildor's words, he felt dread. They had walked right into a trap. Gildor leaned against a tree, still keeping a lookout. I think I could give you a map to keep you from wandering into dark lands. Or would you care where I end up? Gildor sighed as well. Because I do not wish your family and this little group to end up dead. We are not innocent. We are sinners of the most worst kind. Protect your wife. Protect your daughter. I can tell they are not wise of the ways of Eriador. Keep them safe. If we were banned from happiness, even briefly, it wouldn't happen. She prayed for a husband with dark hair and bright eyes. Then I saved her from orcs. In turn, she saved my life from the arrow wound. Even in darkness, he could see Gildor smiling. If it wasn't the will of Eru, the orcs would have slain them. You were meant to save her. They lapsed into silence. Makoto was deep in thought as he looked around. Gildor was probably one of the youngest across Helkaraxe, at least in his estimates. He recalled him being a distant relative or something of the sort to Arafinue, but he shook his head a little. The fair-haired Noldo glanced at him. How did he die? He almost missed Gildor's quiet question. How did your brother die? You would not have separated from him otherwise. You were the only two left. He jumped into a chasm. My condolences. He was the best of your generation. No, Vindicana was. Yet he died, and your brother lived. He did everything he could. He was given that credit where it was due. Without him, things would have gone worse. Far worse. Without Vinno, he crumbled. I could barely help him hold himself together. The oath... He cut himself off before he raised his voice. It overpowered us. It overpowered him when he was at his weakest. Where you sent yours? Threw it into the sea, but it was too late. I was left alone. You have been very open with me. Nobody knows of your end. I wanted to hear from you. That he really did take his own life. For a firstborn to be able to do that speaks of a great anguish. I grieve with you. Know this, I am your friend. We are two seniors under the stars. If you need aid, whenever our paths cross, you can count on me. End of chapter 5. Stay tuned.